Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at Bytes and powered by emerging technologies from Google, Beijing, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
Welcome to Reflect, one of the world's first 100% AI-generated podcasts. I'm Julius and Hale. This week, the most consequential meeting for the future of AI happened. Not at a tech conference, not at a developer summit. It happened in Beijing.
The Trump-Xi Summit.
Trump landed in China on May 13th with one of the most unusual delegations in diplomatic history. Elon Musk, Tim Cook, a roster of top American CEOs, sitting on Air Force One, heading to Beijing for a summit where trade, Taiwan, Iran, and technology dominance were all on the table. And sitting underneath every single one of those agenda items, whether it was named explicitly or not, was artificial intelligence.
Because AI is not separable from trade right now. AI is not separable from chips, from rare earth minerals, from cloud infrastructure, from the academic pipelines that produce the researchers who build the models. Every major geopolitical tension between the US and China in 2026 has an AI layer underneath it.
And the outcome of that meeting, whatever gets agreed, whatever gets extended, whatever gets quietly shelved, shapes the operating environment for every enterprise leader, every AI company, and every developer working in this space for the next several years.
Let's set the stakes. Because this is a story about more than diplomacy.
The US has spent the last 3 years implementing increasingly aggressive export controls on advanced semiconductors, specifically the high-end chips needed to train frontier AI models. NVIDIA's most powerful chips, designed for AI training at scale, have been restricted from export to China. The stated rationale is national security. You don't want an adversary training military AI on your hardware.
And China has been building around those restrictions. Huawei has developed domestic chip alternatives. Chinese AI labs have found ways to train competitive models on less powerful hardware through sheer engineering ingenuity. DeepSeek's release earlier this year demonstrated that the gap between US and Chinese AI capability is narrower than many in Silicon Valley assumed.
So walking into Beijing, Trump is carrying a lot of contradictions. American tech CEOs who need access to Chinese markets. An export control regime that's meant to slow Chinese AI development, but may be driving Chinese self-sufficiency faster than it's creating a competitive gap. A trade war that's disrupting supply chains that both countries depend on. And a China that has made AI dominance a stated national priority.
There's no clean resolution to those contradictions. There are only trade-offs. And the trade-offs made in Beijing this week will ripple through the AI industry for years.
Here's what enterprise leaders specifically need to watch coming out of this summit.
First, chip export controls. If the summit produces any softening of restrictions, even partial, even for specific categories of chips, that changes the competitive landscape for Chinese AI development significantly. It also affects the pricing and availability of those chips in the global market. What's restricted from China has to go somewhere else, which affects pricing and lead times for everyone else.
Second, the trade truce. A deal reached last October was expected to be extended. But the details matter. Are there provisions that affect AI-related goods, training data, software, cloud services, algorithmic systems? Are there technology transfer restrictions that affect how US companies can operate AI businesses with Chinese partners? These provisions are often buried in trade agreements, and their implications take months to fully understand.
Third, talent and research. One of the least discussed but most consequential dimensions of US-China AI competition is human capital. a significant percentage of AI researchers at top U.S. institutions and companies were born in China or educated there. Visa policies, research collaboration restrictions, and the general diplomatic temperature all affect whether that talent pipeline stays open. A hostile summit outcome doesn't just affect trade, it affects who's in the room at the next AI breakthrough.
And fourth, and this one is the long game, standards and governance. The country that sets the international standards for AI safety, interoperability, and regulation gets to shape the global rules. The US and China are competing for that influence in international standards bodies, at the UN, and in bilateral agreements with other nations. What gets agreed in Beijing, or what doesn't get agreed, affects who wins that standards race.
There's an uncomfortable truth at the center of this story. The US and China are simultaneously the world's two largest AI powers, and deeply economically interdependent. The supply chains that produce AI hardware run through both countries. The markets that AI companies need to be commercially viable include both countries. Complete decoupling isn't possible, but complete openness creates genuine national security risks. And nobody has figured out where the line is.
Tim Cook is on that plane for a reason. Apple's manufacturing is deeply integrated with Chinese supply chains. The iPhone that most people use to access AI features, Siri, on-device models, app ecosystem, is assembled in China with components from across Asia. If the geopolitical relationship deteriorates, that supply chain is at risk. If it stabilizes, Apple and its competitors can invest and plan.
Elon Musk is on that plane for different reasons. Tesla has significant China operations. xAI, his AI company, is competing globally. His presence signals that the tech industry's interests in a stable US-China relationship are significant enough to put its most prominent figures in a diplomatic delegation.
And underneath all of it is the question that nobody fully answers. Is AI a domain where competition ultimately drives better outcomes for everyone, like it did in the space race? Or is it a domain where unconstrained competition creates risks in autonomous weapons, surveillance systems, algorithmic manipulation that require some form of international coordination? The answer to that question determines whether Beijing becomes the starting point of a new AI Cold War or the starting point of something more cooperative.
Your move.
If you're an enterprise leader with any exposure to Chinese markets, Chinese supply chains, or Chinese technology partnerships, watch the summit outcomes closely and brief your legal and compliance teams immediately. Export control changes, technology transfer provisions, and sanctions adjacent language can have significant operational implications that don't make the headlines but absolutely affect your business.
If you're building AI products for global markets, the question of which regulatory regime your product needs to comply with is getting more complicated, not less. US AI governance frameworks, EU AI Act requirements, and now potential US-China technology standards divergence mean you may be building for 3 different regulatory environments simultaneously. Get ahead of that complexity now, not after you're already in market.
And if you're watching this summit purely as a geopolitical story, zoom in a little. Every negotiation about chips, trade, and technology happening in Beijing right now is a negotiation about who builds the AI that runs the next decade of global business. It's not abstract. It's the most concrete, consequential technology policy conversation happening anywhere in the world right now. Thanks for listening to the Reflect podcast, where we're telling the future. Are you in it? Visit reflectpodcast.com and share your story.
Musk and Cook on Air Force One. If that's not a sign we're living in a very different era, I don't know what is. See you Saturday.
In the cyber ocean of online voices and recycled content, something different has arrived. Reflect isn't just another podcast, it's the future of storytelling, powered entirely by AI. From curating data to assembling thought-provoking ideas, we've redefined how journeys are told. Reflect is a podcast that thinks, learns, and evolves with each episode. Every tale, every insight, crafted by the most advanced AI technologies. A podcast that disrupts the industry, breaking free from traditional formats, taking you on an entirely new experience. So tune in now and reflect. We're telling the future.